Have you ever had your heart come up into your throat? Or that bad feeling where everything just sinks down into your stomach? Or the butterflies in your stomach where you're really, really nervous? That's all fear. Don't like to talk about fear? Nobody does, because we don't like to even recognize fear, because fear fucking sucks. Quite literally.
Yes, it does fucking suck.
Unless we know what to do with it. Fear
Yeah.
can fear can be your best fucking friend. It's taken me a long time to realize that. And today we want to go through, what we know from neuroscience and psychology and all that stuff about fear, but also what we've personally done and how we've walked through fear to make it our friend and to make it something that enhances our lives instead of shutting it down.
Yeah. I mean, in order to understand fear, from where it started to how it's morphed into today's fear. First of all, fear was, back to our ancestors. It was utilized for safety.
Exactly.
So that they would know when to trigger that fight or flight, if you will. When there was an animal that was attacking, or they were hunting, or things like that. That was fear, was so that they can stay safe during those times in their life. So, and then it's since then morphed into something else, where people are constantly living in fear,
Right.
where they're fear of success, fear of whatever. Put a label to it, and it's not utilized the way it should be, and it hinders us a lot. And it's all masked in anxiety, depression, things like that. That's where fear is now stemming from.
Right.
So
Because fear is your automatic, it's an automatic thing that comes up for you. It's an automatic emotion, like she said, to keep you in a safe, protected place. And then your anxiety and your depression and all that, that's reactions to the fear. So a lot of people start at like, how do I reduce my anxiety? How do I get rid of my depression? How do I get rid of being angry all the time? And not looking at where it's stemming from as they're simply reactions. So instead of just trying to suppress those things, then you're suppressing the fear and you're never really getting to what's going on with you. So if we can take a step back from all those reactionary things and look at them as, okay, fear is my base. What am I afraid of? Let's really get into it, because we automatically push it away or push it down or just push it to the back of our head. We're pushing it somewhere other than having it be really present for us so we can figure out what the fuck it is, where it comes from, and what to really do about it.
yeah, I mean, I get the fact about suppressing it, yet it manifests in different ways. Because let's say you're fearful and all that, and instead of using your words, now you're angry, you're lashing out, you're doing things like that. So although you're trying really, really hard to suppress the fear, it's coming out regardless in other ways.
Right.
So, or it's imprinting in your body, i.e., the depression comes into play, the anxiety comes into play. So, is it really worth suppressing? No.
No.
It's better to face it on, so that you can get past it, so that you can really find out where those core issues are, and utilize it in that manner, because then that way it's not hindering you. It's not putting things aside for you. It is what you're doing is walking through it, which that's what you want. You want to get to the other side of fear, and you want it to keep you safe at the same time. But a lot of us don't. We use fear as, I'm not going to love this person because I'm fearful they're going to break my heart. Where do you think you're going to land in that? You're going to find yourself being super lonely because you're not giving yourself a chance.
Or going into relationships where you've already put out the energy that it's going to end in heartbreak, and
Exactly.
that's where it's going to go.
Yeah. The self-fulfilling prophecies, as they say. If you think it's going to fail, it will.
Exactly.
That's pretty much it. But like, these are the ways in which we utilize a lot of these fear-based thoughts, actions, But there's also fear, real fear. Like for me, I have a fear of spiders. I've been working on that. And I've come a long way.
Yes,
I
she
think,
has.
from like,
Running out of the room screaming.
yeah, I mean, because a little spider looks about yay big to me and I have figured out that it is that little. And although it's jumpy and creepy, I'm gonna be okay.
Yeah, I've never been killed by a spider before.
No, exactly. But that fear came from something that happened to me when I was a child. So, and I'm not fearful of bugs, but I dislike them based upon what happened to me back in the day, i.e., my issue with spiders. Like last night, I was researching this stuff, and that came into play, and sure as shit, there was a spider on the wall.
Right behind her laptop.
I'm like,
She's like,
are you fucking kidding
spider.
me? I'm like, took a breath, went to grab a glass, a paper, so that I can, grab it and take it outside.
You know how many years it's taken her to be able to even do that? Like that's super bravery right there for her.
Like you said, I would literally run out of the room and say to her, spider,
Yeah.
take care of it.
And I'm supposed to go into a 300 square foot room and find a spider in the room randomly.
Right.
So it's right in there. Panicky screaming.
So that's one form, which is legitimate, fear, but again, working through it so that you can get past that phobia,
right?
And not let it consume you in your life, and
know when you're diving into the energy to really look at it, it will come up. Like, so don't be like shocked I was meditating right before this to get ready for it, and I'm in the middle of my meditation, maybe 5 minutes in, I'm starting to get into that really good deep place that I love, and everything's just bubbling nicely, and then a giant bomb goes off, literally a bomb, because I live near an Air Force base and today must be bomb training day. And so the whole house shakes, like my whole body freezes up, like it was, insane, which I never want to shut that off, because if there's an actual real bomb, then I need to take action. I need to be able to do something, not just like, oh, whatever, bombs go off all the time. I ignore them because I don't want to be scared by them. Like,
right.
No. I mean, I was able to recenter myself and because when I face it, I look at what the truth is going on. Okay, I know I live near an Air Force base. I acknowledge that, yes, that was scary. I acknowledge it to my body, to my brain, everything. Yes, that was scary. We're going to go back into meditation so we can reset from that and we can be okay. So that like this whole process that I go through really, really, really quick, and I finish my meditation. But so expect the stuff to come up, and it gives you opportunity to exercise courage, reason, center yourself back into truth. And another thing you were saying before about what it masks and what it like mimics and whatnot. I want to talk about feelings, because if you feel any of these things, like if you feel broken, if you feel lost, if you feel alone, if you feel stuck, if you feel scared, all these usually is an underlying issue with fear. Because a lot of times we will work on the I'm lonely, or I'm stuck, I need to work harder and get moving, or I'm lonely, so I just need to go out and have other people be around, and suddenly I'm magically not going to feel that way anymore. There's an underlying fear there. So all these things that we're commonly like looking at the symptoms per se, and never getting down to the root of it. So if you've been working on like a lot of those things for a long time, feeling lost or broken or separate or alone, you can kind of back off of working on those a little and just start working on fear, drilling down into fear. And so first one, face it, like you said. Face it just doesn't mean fuck you, fear, like I'm afraid to leave the house, but I'm gonna make myself anyway. And you get like 2 feet out the door, and then you book it back inside, and you're like, yep, I faced it and it didn't work.
Yeah.
Finding that evidence of why it didn't work. Kudos for mustering up what you could and getting yourself out the door. That's really awesome. But face it just isn't like being defiant to it and saying fuck you to it. Facing it is actually looking at what's going on, like, okay, spider, real references in my head, not just the automatic fear response, so I can see if I can move beyond that. Feel it. So after you face it, you need to feel it. What am I feeling? Am I feeling broken? Am I feeling separate? Am I feeling scared? Am I feeling startled? Like, what am I feeling? Honor those feelings.
And those things come up instantly.
Yes.
Like the minute you start feeling fearful, like let's say I see a spider, all of a sudden I get this feeling in the pit of my stomach. I start to feel like I'm gonna panic, like like I am in some sort of danger. Like my body starts to react very quickly. Then the emotion starts to run through. So it's just like being really aware the minute it's triggered, I think helps you handle it a little bit better. Because when it happened to me last night, I literally like took a breath. Like we've told you many times, I paused and took a breath, and I'm like, okay, I need to handle this situation without freaking the fuck out.
Because that doesn't serve you.
So it's just like I got up from the chair, walked past her, and I says, "There's a spider," and I went and got the glass and all that stuff. And you were like, "Are you gonna take care of it?"
I asked 3 times if she needed help. I got 0 response because she was focused.
I was focused.
I need to get the cup. I need to do this. She was handling it.
Yeah, so that I can get to the other side of that. Because I know that is based upon something else that had happened, and it. And again, it's not happening now. It's not going to kill me.
And this is the big miss, I think, with fear. We think about it here, and we feel it and all that stuff. And I think we always miss the body piece of it, because the root cause of fear is a lack of trust. And trust is 100% not emotional, not logic. Trust is body felt. You have a sense of trust, or you have a sense you don't have trust in something, period. It is felt in the body. You know when you walk into a place if you trust it or you have an off feeling. You know when you meet a new person if you trust them or if you have an off feeling. Or if you're not sure and you need to feel into it a little bit more, but you have a body sense constantly. So when she had something happen to you when you were little with that bug, when you were a child, you had a whole body reaction to it.
I did.
And your body remembers that.
Yeah.
So you can have people explain to you all you want about how bugs can be our friends and how, look, it's gentle, it's not hurting me or whatever. Logically, it didn't make a bit of fucking difference because you still had that stored body response. So by you doing what you did, facing it, feeling it, making a decision to gather your courage and walk through it, you started creating different body responses and okay, I can do this. I can handle it. You built trust with yourself.
Right.
That you can handle that situation.
Yeah. And because my first reaction to something like that is flight.
Yep.
Because that's exactly how I reacted back then. So every time I see a bug or a spider or anything like that, it's just I want to take off.
And if you're
wherever the bug is,
grab the shoe and squash it. You're in fight.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't want to kill them. And I think that stems from being with you, because you're very conscious about living beings and all that stuff. And so instead of grabbing that and killing it, I don't. I do relocate it if I can.
Yep.
So, but yeah, it's interesting how physically it sets off the alarm. I think they said it's we had the amygdala.
Yeah.
The amygdala is the alarm that sounds off when fear is triggered. And then it sends off the waves onto your body, your brain, your emotions, and all those things, so that you're reacting to it. And this is
and your
scientific shit.
Your gut is commonly called your second brain.
Yeah.
And that's why you get gut feelings and all that stuff. And that's where it's felt a lot of times with the fear.
Right.
So you're facing it, you're feeling it. And then the third thing, try friending it. Because we always do the fuck you thing to fear, or the trying to push it away, or I don't want that to be part of me. It is part of you. So when you're acknowledging that you have the fear, and you can, even if you can see where it's stemming from, I have a thing with money. Even if I have, this is because I had a point when I didn't have enough money to put food on the table. I was very sick at the same time, so I was trying to push through and work, and it was difficult for me to make ends meet. And I never ever fucking want to go back there again, because that's a scary place, because it seriously does start affecting your basic needs of food and shelter and all of those things, and safety. I want to keep myself out of a place that triggers and seriously physically affects my personal safety. So I have all that wrapped up into money, because money can put food on my table and put the roof over my head. So I tied those in together, that to not feel that way and not be threatened that way, I need to have money. But I can have $20,000 in the bank and still be fearful of it. So, okay, so how does that work? Like, why do I still feel that way? And then I realized it was tied to the programming of having to have a job and a steady paycheck. The old programming, old world. When I had a steady paycheck, a lot of us keep spending up to where our paychecks when they rise, and we're still living paycheck to paycheck. Maybe in a nicer house with a nicer car, but we're still living paycheck to paycheck.
Right.
So you save more, or you cut back, and you do this and that, and you do all the fucking things, never dealing with where that core fear is.
And I think that the core fear came from you really, really didn't feel safe when you were sick, and business wasn't quite right. We were struggling on so many different levels, and you landed in that place for yourself. And also your fight and flight was debilitating to you as well, because you were sick, so that wasn't functioning the way it should.
And why did I get sick? I truly believe it's because of all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's all the stress, it's all the fear, because I was always like, I'm bigger than fear, I'm not afraid of anything. If you asked me 5 years ago, you could probably watch some of our old videos, I'm like, I honestly can't think of anything I'm afraid of, except maybe like a bus hurling at me at 80 miles an hour, or somebody with a gun to my head, like real fear.
Which is interesting, because I've had a gun pointed to my head, and when I tell you that pissed me off more than it did create fear for me, but again, being angry can also be fear, is a masking of that.
Yep, that's another one of those feelings.
Right. So it's just like, it's interesting how, and this is what I noticed the most, that when fear kicks in, my body reacts in such a way that, and then the flood of emotions that come into play, like rapid fire.
I want to give you a quick message before we get back to this episode. Unlock the secrets of your soul for free with Soul Notes. Say goodbye to feeling stuck and hello to the validation of your alignment. These weekly prompts are filled with reminders, gentle nudges, and sometimes a kick in the ass, all with love from your soul. Don't just take our word for it. Try Soul Notes for yourself and see the difference it can make in your life. Trust us, your soul and you will thank you. Just go to soulnote.org. That's SOULNOTE.org. Now back to our podcast.
So that, again, is that amygdala that's triggered and setting off that alarm, so that you can either decide if you're going to fucking run, if you're going to stay and fight, if you're going to put your emotions in check, it really triggers all those things. Facing the barrel of a gun, you're like, either I'm going to die, or this person is going to have it out with me, one or the other. You know what I'm saying? It was, and I think that the worst part for me was when I had to turn my back to the person, because they asked me, because this was a business that we had, my mom had, and I was working that night, and it was just about closing time, and that person came in, and I'm like, take the fucking register, I don't fucking care, and all that, but then he asked me to go to the back room so that he can leave, and when I gave my back to that, that's when I just, like, it really shook me, because I would rather see it coming than not at all. You know what I'm saying? So it was just like fear was just like fucking with me at that point. Like I was like, what the hell's gonna happen? And I waited like 5 minutes before I, peeked through the door to see if the guy was gone and all that shit, and locked the door and all that. And literally, I was shaking. I wasn't when I was facing him. Mm-hmm. Only when I had to take that walk.
Right, because the body has a chance to start releasing the energy. And this is the thing with the body sense. So the body automatically knows what to do when it's extreme like that, when it's a real situation where real fear needs to pop up. And the body knows how to shake it off. So like if you look at those natural responses to it, how can we mimic that in real life? I mean, that's when if you're angry about something, if you just like literally like a kid stomp and just frickin' stomp and like rant, out loud if you have the opportunity to do that, or in your head, and just get it all fucking out and don't stop stomping and shaking your arms or beating on the bed until you feel all that energy released from your system. And it truly does help because it releases it from the body. It gives the body a way to get it out. Yeah. Dancing is another way. We used to give people like a bat and have them beat an old mattress to just like get it the hell out of their system. Mm-hmm. That's why you'll see a lot of people going into like mixed martial arts and that type of thing, boxing, because they have an avenue. They have an avenue to actually move their body and do something. Just simple exercise or walking can help diffuse it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Like I remember when an ending of a relationship came into play, and I was super hurt and all that stuff. And what I found that would make me feel better and like get through it was exercise. It was angry exercise, and let me tell you.
Yeah, that's fine.
But after half an hour of doing that, I felt better. And I called it I'm not going to say the person's name, the person's name exercise. And that's what I called it.
The X exercise.
that was my workout. So it was pretty interesting. And again, it did help moving the body. And, and although it was in an angry way, it still moved it. It still worked the energy through. And at the end, I felt 1,000 times better. And I did that for several months. Mm-hmm. I was feeling pretty fucking good too.
Oh, yeah.
Physically and emotionally. So,
exactly. And when we're talking about friending the fear, I read this one brilliant article all about it, where they would walk the person through naming the fear part of them. Like, this person actually used the Klaus, which I love Klaus from Umbrella Society. I think Klaus is a brilliant mix of brilliance, creativity, smart and clever, and also a hot fucking mess, nervous, anxious, like all the things mixed into one, which we all are, all the things mixed into one. So if you can name your fear, like if my money fear was Klaus, and I'm just going about, and then that thing pops up, and I get, the drop in the pit of my stomach, and I'm starting to have them bracing thoughts, and all the crap is going on that fear brings up. Am I really safe in that moment? Yes. I'm not starving to death. No one's, having a gun to my head or anything like that. So logically, yes, I know I'm really safe, but I can't get the feeling and the thoughts out of my being. If you name that and like, hey, Klaus, you showed up again. Okay. And let, or whatever name you want to give it, let it speak to you. Let it rant and like, I'm afraid because, the bank account isn't consistently, we're not replenishing $1,000 every week. Like it's, you had this nice infusion and now it's just going down and down and down. And that's making me nervous. Even though we have stuff in the bank, still we could end up right back there if we don't, start doing, we have to do something. It's this constant emergent thing. And if you can talk to them and be like, dude, it's okay. I got you. Like you would talk to a friend. Like, because really, fear, it's just scared.
Yeah.
It feels unsupported. It feels unstable.
Yeah.
So how can you talk to it and be like, all right, we're going to do this together. We're going to get through the next 5 freaking minutes. And we're going to still be okay in 5 minutes. I will show you. Just come on. I know you're scared. Let's do this, Klaus. And like, and go work out or go, put on music and dance or something. call somebody and talk
Something
about
that's
it.
going to move the energy
Yeah.
out of you, because every event, every thought, every feeling, all those things leave an imprint in your physical body, and it will play itself out someplace else.
Yep.
Or at some other time.
Yep.
So if you're not dealing with it, shit's gonna come up, and so that you do deal with it. And if you continue not to deal with it, it's just gonna amplify and amplify and amplify until one day it's gonna fucking crack. You're gonna freak the fuck out in such a way that you're like, that's not gonna equal the situation.
Yep.
And you're gonna be like, whoa, what the hell just happened?
You're going to
here?
be screaming at somebody or ugly snot crying, or you're
Yeah.
going to miss out on major events in your life because you're too afraid to go out.
Yeah.
Lots of things will start tumbling
Sure.
down.
It's crazy, but getting a handle on fear and utilizing it in the way it was created. Fear is supposed to keep us safe. It's not supposed to emotionally debilitate us.
Right.
And that's something that we've added to that. And I'm not saying that depression isn't real, and I'm not saying anxiety isn't real.
Another way it'll show up too is if you're the fixer, you're the people pleaser, you're the extra hard worker, like all these, these categories that we put people or ourselves into. That baseline of that is fear. You're giving, and unless like you're really centered and you're just serving people or whatever, or you just love the work that you're doing. But a lot of people are just trying to overachieve to prove something, or people please to make themselves useful, or so that they get validation out of it. There's something to it's always trying to calm that fear in some way. I'm working harder so I can make more money, so the money fear calms down. Like no, let's not work harder, Klaus. Let's go do this instead, and seriously thank that part of you. Thank you for showing up, because that means my fear response is on, and it's here to keep me safe. And I totally understand you are trying your damnedest to protect me, and you're showing up for me like nobody else in my whole life has ever fucking shown up for me, Klaus. So, and the more you create new experiences with whoever you call your fear, the more like the spider you're going to be able to handle things. And the less and less you'll see Klaus come around, and you'll even kind of miss them at some point. And at one point you'll be like, wow, I haven't seen Klaus in months. And you'll be in a different, like much more centered place. A lot of people, if you're more in the spiritual community, will call this their inner child work.
Right.
Talking to your inner child because they're not feeling safe because something probably happened a long time ago. But it legitimately can be something that happened last week. That's, a PTSD type of situation that's just has that fear really up.
It's interesting you said about the inner child, because when I was doing that kind of work, my inner child was MIA, or at least it was consciously to me. And I think it had to do a lot with my upbringing. But
You had to grow up really fast to stay alive.
So my inner child is like, if I ever got to see my inner child, they were very quiet, or kind of like a shadow, if you will, things like that. But it was interesting doing that kind of work around my inner child and fear. This fear stuff is sitting in our past.
Yep.
Based on our past experiences. So, for me, it was about going back in time, to kind of identify and then heal it, so that then I can become more present. And I think that that's the key.
That is the key.
The more present you are, the less in the fear-based things you will be. And again, moving forward, there's a lot of people out there that are really fearful of the future. So if we can stay in the present moment, like for me, there is no spider here right now. I'm not going through the bullshit that I was going through when I was a kid. That's not happening now. I don't need to live in that energy. I don't need to live in that fear. Right here, I have a beautiful home, a beautiful relationship. I'm in good health. This is where I am. That's the energy I want to tap into. And if things come throughout the day like a spider, I will handle it, because I'm not going to be living in that place. That was then, this is now. This is the person I'm becoming, and I want to honor that. So the less you stay in the past, and the less you stay in the future, and you're here, right, the here and now, the more manageable I think fear will start to be for people.
Right.
Because you're handling it. You're really staying present. This is not happening to me right now.
And presence is a much higher frequency than the codependency on the past or the worry about the future. That's anxiety and depression right there. And what this is you holding on to an old version of who you are and being fearful of moving into a new version where, like, I can put a spider into a glass. Mm-hmm. I don't even have to touch it, but I can actually do that, and I can be okay. Yeah. It's a lot of third chakra work. So if we have other videos on each of the chakras, we've worked up from, your root stuff with your family to your sacral chakra with your sense of who you are and taking your power, and then your third chakra, that's where all of your courage lives. That's where you're authentically in you and your power. So now you have the courage to move on and to create new versions of you. Yeah. What keeps you stuck and codependent on that old world energy is a separate, smaller you. It's old patterns, old beliefs. We talk about this all the time. Yeah. That is reinforced by doing things like flipping through social media constantly. Because you're just looking for hits that identify different things that, oh, don't like that. That's firing a fear thing. Oh, I really like that. Or, oh, wait, that fear thing fired. Oh, yeah, more fear, more fear, more fear. Or more hits of happiness, of dopamine, so I don't have to deal with the fear. Mm-hmm. It's keeping in those old patterns. It's also retelling the same stories over and over again. And that's keeping you anchored into the old you.
Yeah. And, they use that stuff in storytelling. Books, movies. If you notice when you're watching a movie, it will invoke fear, it will invoke happiness, it will invoke shock, laughter, all those things. Those are all things that are within us, in social media, TV, books, all tap into that. Mm-hmm. So being aware of your own shit, and your own fear and your own stuff kind of helps balance that out, because then when you do read the book, you're enjoying it. Or if you're watching that movie, you're enjoying it, even though you're going through the emotions, you're still enjoying it. So,
and the more you work on this stuff, the more the fear will start to dissolve and move on, because the old you and the old attachments start to dissolve. This is like all about, we always end up with it into the frequency thing of it. So the now is your highest frequency with this. The now is your place. So how do you get into the now? Mm-hmm. We've talked all about that, meditation and all that other things, but you can't just be like, okay, ignoring the fear. I'm going to be in the now. I'm right in the now. I'm right in the now. Like, no, because that other stuff is still there.
Right. Because if you do that, you're landing in feeling overwhelmed.
Yes.
There's a difference there. Being present is like, tangible stuff. This is a table. This is where I am. We're in the middle of a podcast. Yeah. If you're sitting in some other place while you're doing that, now you're feeling overwhelmed. Like, I need to do this. I need to do that. Then, what if I do this and that happens? Now you're stressing the fuck out of yourself. Being present, really acknowledging, being mindful. Again, stuff we've talked about. All the things that you can do to be in the present moment so that you can handle whatever comes is the best place you want to land on.
And this is where you want to notice, are you shying away from life because of fear, or are you rushing at it like with, anger, and that's what you think your courage is? Or are you running out there in a panic into life because, I'm fearful, but I'm doing it anyway? Like, where do you fall in all those things? Because that's the frequency that you're putting out. And if frequency determines everything, that's what you want to look at. So if you're the panic or you're the shy away, that's because of the foundation of what you think your reality is in that moment. Mm-hmm. So you think the sky is falling, so you're running and you're panicking. Yeah. Like, so how do you shift that frequency? Yeah. It's really where we want to pay attention.
By the easiest way you can change that frequency is by asking yourself a simple question. How am I showing up?
Mm-hmm.
I ask people that all the time. I ask myself that all the time. How am I showing up today?
Right.
Am I showing up as a hot mess? Am I showing up focused? Am I showing up where I'm bringing value to people and myself? How are you showing up?
And
there, it will shift everything.
Exactly. And I would add, are you showing up in a way where you're desiring to create a new world for yourself, or desiring to create a new you? Or have you just like settled into the, my fear? This is my fear. You've named it my fear, like it's your master, and basically it has to become your master.
At that point, it is for sure.
Well, my fear has me doing this or that, and like you don't have any control. Or are you truly showing up like, I have fear. I understand I have fear. It is safe to have fear in my body because I know what to do with it, and I'm working on it and working through it because I desire this new form of life. Because if you're not actively creating, and I don't mean you have to be doing, but some of that is action. But if you're not doing something to actively create a new you and a new world, you're going to stay attached to the old, and you're going to keep feeling separate and broken and lonely and scared and all of those things. And the more that you're in the now frequency, the more you feel connected and loved and joy. And then when something unexpected comes up, you can handle it more with grace. Mm-hmm. I mean, as much as you can. Like, I need to get a glass. I'm not responding to anybody else in the whole room because I need to catch the spider.
Right.
Like, that's what you had to do, and you did it. And I didn't become like snotty housewife that they're not listening to me. Well, do you need help or not? Like, I'm just like, I asked again in case you didn't hear me, and then I watched and allowed you. And then when I felt the energy coming back, because it was getting a little more frantic, and I'm like, I'm going to follow to see if, do you need assistance? And she's like, maybe. And she literally got the whole thing herself. But then she handed it off.
Yeah.
But
because they're jumpy little fuckers.
Some of them are.
This one last night was.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So can you leave the old world and the old energy and the old you behind? And behind again, I don't mean like, fuck you, go away. Can you leave that energy that you don't need anymore and befriend what you have in front of you that is part of you and be kind to it? And by doing this again, you're going to face it. You're going to feel it. You're going to friend it. And you're going to move that body so you can be in a high frequency. And then fear will be your opportunity.
Yeah.
Okay, so from warrior to warrior, you got this. All right? Be kind.
Be kind. Peace.